Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use your promo code DNVR25. You'll get 25% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, his beat writer, Patrick Lyons. And on this episode, we break down yet another wild road win for your Colorado Rockies, and one that looked like was not going to go their way at all. Ends up going their way in Atlanta. We'll talk about the inspiring performance, obviously, of Sam Hilliard, the not quite so inspiring performance of Germán Márquez. We'll get into all of that when we take a look around at some news at the end of the show, but do want to begin with some local news here. We won't do too much on it because he hasn't played just yet, and we'll have a show tomorrow to break down once he's done some stuff. But we got to get excited for yet another major league debut here, Patrick, and begin the show talking about a big day for Ryan Vallade.
Very exciting. We started getting the inklings early this morning that he would have gotten the promotion. Of course, he wasn't on the 40-man. He needed to be added at some point this winter ahead of the Rule 5 draft. So that was definitely going to happen for the 22-year-old outfielder from Oklahoma. And Buddy talked about how he's been on the radar since spring training, played really well there in Scottsdale in late February throughout the month of March. And he's certifiably an outfielder at this point, which is great. You know, they've got some guys banged up, so the bench is looking tight. Ryan Feltner gets optioned down to AAA, and Bernardo Flores Jr. is designated for assignment. If you've been listening to the show, you know we've at least mentioned his name on more than one occasion, but great opportunity here for him, and great opportunity for Rockies fans to get excited about the future of the franchise. Colton Welker already getting that promotion on Larry Walker's Hall of Fame Day. Pretty easy to remember that date there, which would be September 8th, how they've coincided with his MLB debut. And now we've got Vallade here making his debut on September 18th, wearing the number 31, playing left field and batting 7th in tonight's lineup in Washington, D.C. So it's a fun time, I think, for Rockies fans to get that taste of what's coming up next, and they don't have to just look on the MILB app or wait for us to talk about someone.
Right.
They get a chance to kind of see these guys up close and personal, and hopefully he'll be sticking around when they come back home on Tuesday at the start of what will be a 9-game homestand, the final week of the season of home games at Coors Field for the Rockies.
Yeah. Getting him in there right away. Got to like that. Throwing him out there in the left field. Let's see what he's got. Very excited for this opportunity for him. Like you said, just more stuff to get to watch. Especially when it comes to his defensive and athletic prowesses. It's been reported a lot more this year that he's really been excelling in those regards. And of course, that's one of those things that you can't just look at a box score like you're talking about, check in, how we often do. If you're not watching the game specifically, they've had to move all around the diamond in his minor league career. He's played some more shortstop than I had realized after kind of moving away from it early. He's basically played everywhere on the diamond but second base and catcher. And there are even reports that with his decent athleticism, he mans center field okay too. And so that's kind of the stuff, you want to see guys hit. It's baseball. We're going to be honing in on each and every at bat for the new guy. But I'm really curious about how that plays and how he's going to factor in moving forward as the Rockies are kind of shuffling pieces around.
Buddy said on the conference before Saturday's game that his bat will be his calling card. That will be, how we will know him, right? He's jumped around, playing a lot of different positions. Hopefully the defense will at least be solid. It doesn't really have to be necessarily anything more than that, but it'll be the bat. It'll be, the stick, was, a little under 300 this year at Albuquerque. One of the youngest players there as well. He's still only 22 years old. Friday night, I sent out a tweet about, Juan Soto being 22 and, all of these young players that the Rockies have had in their past. Not a lot, actually. Not a lot of guys under the age of 23, and particularly position players that have made their debut, other than the big names, like Tulo, Arenado, even David Dahl. But now he'll be amongst that class. So that's really nice that, he's basically the before this season, he was an A-ball. And now here he is in the majors. Whether he's, 100% ready or not is somewhat besides the point, because it's just a good opportunity for him to be around some of these veteran guys. He was going to be added anyway. So get him a couple games in now so that he doesn't have to wait until April. He can, shake out any of those emotional cobwebs, so to speak, about playing in a big ballpark and whatnot. And it kind of gives him an opportunity to really catapult forward at the start of next year when, maybe he is, platooning in the outfield, and maybe he is getting, slightly more regular starts with the big league team rather than shuffling back and forth from Albuquerque to Colorado. He knows the organization is making this commitment to him and saying, hey, you could possibly beat somebody out for a job next year, since you never really know what the offseason holds. And even though the Rockies seem like they might have somewhat of a crowded outfield, again, if the new GM or if the current interim GM sticks around, he could make a couple deals and make a couple trades and say, you know what, we think so-and-so is valued a little bit more by this other organization, and we want to bolster up an area that we feel we have a weakness. And you know what, that's fine, because we got Ryan Vallade to do just as nice of a job as, any number of the Rockies' current outfielders. So there's definitely some opportunities there, and I'm looking forward to see what he can do here during the final 2 weeks.
Yeah, going to be a lot of fun. The other part of this move is, of course, as managers often remind us in the media, especially when we're calling for somebody, when we're like really pressing. I can remember this during the David Dahl times. When's this guy going to make his debut? When's this guy going to make his debut? And then Bud Black would remind us, and usually once the press conference is over, every time we call somebody up, we got to send somebody out. It's not a great day for everybody necessarily. Now the Rockies had, some wiggle room here and someone on the roster who I don't think was expecting to be a permanent fixture starting right now. But they did have to do some shuffling. Someone's got to go out, and they did. The pitching rotation now becomes this very interesting question moving forward. Patrick, can you take the people through what we've got on deck? It was confirmed, right? You were in with Buddy today, and I was not, that John Gray will pitch tomorrow, and then maybe we'll see some Peter Lambert next week. Take the people through the machinations here.
Might have to be Peter Lambert, who looked good in his previous start. Good enough, I should say. So yeah, John Gray originally scheduled to open the Dodgers series at home. So now he slides up to Sunday. Kyle Freeland will of course start today against Patrick Corbin. Love those lefty on lefty matchups. Love it. It'll be Gray against Paolo Espino on Sunday. Early one. It's an early one. That's a 11:05 start. Yeah, I like that. I like those morning games.
Love it. Plenty of Strava Craft coffee.
Rockies have an off day on Monday, and then from there we'll see what shuffles around. If Senzatella makes a start on Tuesday, I think Tuesday could be when we see somebody new, fresh off the boat, so to speak, to get that start against the Dodgers. Senzatella, Marquez just after that. So I think it's still a little bit up in the air because there's been that shuffling going on, and there's more opportunities, I think, for the starting pitchers, for them to get a feel of who's going to be around next year. Maybe we see Ryan Rolston, as you said, Peter Lambert. He's already on the 40-man roster and just needs to be activated. He's on the 60-day IL, so somebody else would have to come off of the 40-man roster or be moved to the 60-day IL, which isn't a big issue. If Connor Joe's not ready, his hamstring issues are still ongoing. I think I was maybe a little more hopeful than I should have been when Bud said, "Yeah, you know what, it could be the minimum." And we had Drew Goodman on, and he said, "Well, that's good and fine, but those hamstring injuries can be a doozy." I said, "Yeah, you're right." And so Goody was on the ball for that.
Goody harps on, and we don't bring this stuff up much, Lex. I know some people, when you put that many thoughts out publicly to people, you're going to have critics. When you're every single day for 3 to 4 hours a night just sharing your thoughts, there's going to be some criticisms. And I think that's one of those things that he kind of harps on. People go, why does he keep bringing up back of the leg injuries? He talks and he makes a very specific thing about that, but he's right. That's one he totally nails with that. And we all want to be like, well, a little bit of a hammy thing doesn't sound so bad, right? You can get back out there. And Goody's like,
If Chi-Chi's not ready to come off the IL, he's another guy that could go to the 60-man. So for anyone that doesn't know, typical injury list players, they're gone for 10 days. They are still a part of your 40-man roster because it's 10 days. But once a player goes onto the longer-term IL, the 60-day IL, now you essentially have a new spot on the 40-man. So, in fact, if you go to Rockies.com and you look at the 40-man, you're going to count something like 45 names. And that's because there are 5 in this example that would be on the 60-day IL. So that's
right.
How you work around that. And then come the off season, you now have there is no IL. So even a guy who's in the middle of Tommy John surgery on the cutting table, he's going to be he's off the IL.
Right.
And so then at that point, you have to decide what are the 40 guys you want to keep apropos of any injury at all. And so that's where you cut some fat, or that's where you say, well, that's okay because these guys are free agents, so they're coming off the books. So now we still have 40 guys. And if we want to bring this player, CJ Cron, for example, or Trevor Story or John Gray, if we want to bring them back, now we have to make a move on the 40-man. So it's pretty common to have a lot more than 40 guys on the 40-man roster. And so I think we can still play around with that to activate Peter Lambert. And like you said, I definitely think that would be great to have him come back for that final series in Colorado.
Yeah, and it would be on his regular rest and all that. And just one more thing that is in line with this comment here from Steven in our YouTube live, but I'll get to that after I tell you about this. Now I'm still on our Strava Craft coffee drinking hours. Breck Brew hours will come after the Rockies secure this road series win. If they can secure this road series win, that would be their 3rd in a row and 4 in their last 5, when there was a time in the season when we were wondering if they were ever going to get one. So quite the turnaround it's been here. So we'll toast our Breck Brews to them if they get that done. You get a bigger Breck Brew when you come down to the DNVR bar. If you're a member, you should subscribe today at the DNVR.com. You get access to all the written content. Like I said, a bigger beer at the bar. You get discounts on hats and shirts and stuff. We send you a free shirt if you get the annual right away. There's so many fantastic things you get from being a member. Access to our Discord channel, just a private chat room. We're hanging out all the time, talking baseball, movies, Star Wars, all the other sports, what's going on in your life, who's cooking something delicious, all kinds of fun stuff in the Discord channel. Come and hang out with us. And don't forget to come out to trivia night, by the way, on Tuesdays down at the DNVR bar. It's a whole lot of fun. It's Tuesday. I don't know that I've always said the time. It's Tuesdays at 7:00. I've been getting out there for most of them, so you can come hang out with me most of the time. And once the off season kicks in, I'll be out there all the time. So come hang out, play trivia, have some fun. The food and drink is delicious and extraordinarily reasonably priced. So come hang out with us down at the DNVR bar.
And depending on your knowledge of irrelevant information that that is trivial. It's trivial for a reason.
True.
Your meal can be paid for because first place team I know wins $50, and there's some other prizes for second and third place. Right. So you can quite literally put your money where your mouth is and say, all right, I'm going to order a couple things on the menu, get some appetizers. Well, guess what? All that can be free if the last second baseman to back cleanup for the Colorado Rockies 100%. For a week straight.
Love it. It all puts a great big old smile on my face. And my smile is brought to you by our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group. They're fantastic. They've been a long time. I think one of the very first BSN sponsors from forever ago. They're fantastic. They treat you like family. Just 15 minutes outside of downtown Denver, there in Lakewood. They'll hook you up with free Sonicare toothbrush when you schedule your cleaning, x-ray, and exam today. So do check them out. And Steven's got a big old smile on his face. Excited to see Vallade today. Realized a few days ago that the Rockies are only 2 wins away from their 2019 win total of 71. Very encouraging to see. as a Rocks fan with this young core we have. I've been thinking a lot about this team outperforming expectations, Stephen, but I hadn't put it in that particular framing before. That's really interesting, right? That 2019 team that had all the expectations, and they still had Nolan, and they had Daniel Murphy was hopefully going to do big things for them. And yeah, they'd lost some pieces, but they were coming off to back-to-back postseason campaigns, and that's really interesting because they will. Just based on recent play, you've got to believe they're going to surpass that.
And don't forget that 2019 team was in spot for one of the wild card positions
right.
as late as I think mid-June. They were still in there, several games over 500 before that San Diego series kind of derailed some things.
Yeah, and there was talk about them being buyers at the trade deadline. In fact, I think even some potential moves had leaked from that about how they were in on Marcus Stroman, who eventually ended up going to the Mets and stuff like that. So it just goes, that's pretty wild to think about. That they have, that team so underperformed expectations, obviously the 2019 squad, and then this team has so overperformed them. And there will be an entire offseason long debate about what that truly means. But for now, certainly watching the baseball games and wanting these young players to improve and play, or as we've talked about, more inexperienced players that are part of your future, to improve and show you they can be a part of that future. It's been really nice for that. So, Patrick, that's some wild framing right there, though. Amazing to think that this squad, if you would have looked at their two rosters at the beginning of each season, say, no way, this team wins more than that team.
It's quite surprising, to say the least. Yeah, very, very surprising. And it's funny that that question was asked. Thanks, Stephen. Today, because today was the day I had been wanting to ask Buddy this for a few days and wasn't quite brave enough because I thought this is a stupid question.
Oh no!
But it's one I want to know, and I got the answer, and it wasn't exactly what I was hoping, so to speak. But it was, you guys are 8.5 games out of the final wild card spot, and got a 4-game win streak here on the road. Won 7 of your last 8 on the road and just playing really well. And it's not crazy to think that, I don't know, if you go on a run here in the final month, it's crazy. I don't know that that's ever happened before.
Is anything like that in Colorado Rockies?
Yeah, exactly. So it just kind of piqued my interest. Like, are you guys talking about that at all in the clubhouse? Are you really trying to be those snakes in the grass and those underdogs trying to take down those overcats, which they've been doing on the road and at home to very much the same degree? And, I think he appreciated the question, but I wasn't convinced that they really are. Like, I thought there's this chance that they're whispering it, and maybe they are, and maybe he didn't want to kind of talk about it too much because they almost have to win out. They almost quite literally have to win out, and they're not eliminated yet. But I don't even know what their magic number is. They don't list the magic number for wild card. They do for the division, which they're eliminated. Padres are also eliminated from clinching the division too, which is interesting. But they have a chance, and if they continue to play this well and beat the teams that are ahead of them in the standings. And now, granted, they're not going to play any of those teams after this, like Philly and Atlanta were the last 2. So they really helped themselves, move up. Every win was a loss for those 2 clubs. And so it was kind of worth that much more. And I don't think they're going to do that. I don't even think they're going to get ahead of the Mets. But if they're looking at the standings, they might see it completely differently. Like, man, we are really grooving right now. We're just playing great, and we're playing so much better. We're a lot more confident. These young guys that we're bringing in are helping and contributing. We're all getting a lot better. And is this something that's going on? I don't think it is, but I thought, what, there could be a chance. There could be a chance.
It's funny that you mentioned that because Katie, my fiance, for those of you who don't know, was asking that question. Was kind of doing the math, right? And I did not expect to be having this conversation at this point in the season, but and basically explain that if you're 3 games ahead of me and I win, you also win. Well, you're still 3 games ahead of me. And so that's the problem, right? Is it's not even just that the Rockies have to win out. It's that all the other teams have to lose. But our friends over at Purple Row did get me thinking about a few extra potential. And you said another one there, sort of goals for the season that I really like, because Rockies aren't going to get the top pick in the draft. They're going to be anywhere from 7th to 13th or whatever. And that's where they're going to be, it looks like. And okay. So in terms of just for the season, you just mentioned catching the Mets. I like that. The guys at Purple Row and gals, actually run by our great friend Sam Bradfield. I don't know who sent this particular tweet, said, let's catch Padres. That's actually doable. And that actually could have some interesting implications, not necessarily for the Rockies. Again, we'll have plenty of time to debate the end of the season and the off season, if it was a good thing or a bad thing that the Rockies have finished the season well here. But if you knock the Padres down to 3rd place in the division or something, like if you can catch these guys, do you force them to start doing even wilder things and you start messing with their mojo and now they're no longer, I really think you can already start to have the conversation about were they this juggernaut to be afraid of, but you mess with their mojo a little bit, make them start panic doing things, firing people because they finished behind the Rockies after everything they did. Yeah, but or even if none of that happens, just for the karma of it, to finish ahead of the Padres, I think is a pretty fun goal and one that's certainly more achievable. Though you're right, not mathematically impossible for the Rockies to make the postseason.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be some changes in San Diego, but
yeah,
a lot of the issues that they're having, I think, is more injury based. Granted,
doesn't stop people from doing dumb stuff.
That's right. Yeah, and granted, AJ Preller just didn't. He didn't have the right package. He didn't have the package he needed, Drew. And this isn't the start of a
which reminds me rather of our friends at Manscaped. No,
but the Nationals preferred the Dodgers group of prospects in Josiah Gray and Gilbreth Ruiz, and it was going to be almost a similar package of guys from the Padres, and so he didn't get that job done, and I think that would have certainly gone a long way. All these starts that you see by Max Fisher would be racked up for the Padres, but even outside of that, they've just Jake Arrieta is still going out there making starts. They got him off the scrap heap. Vince Velasquez just recently got called up, and so it's just the injuries to everybody from Paddock and Snell's now on the IL. Adrian Marhone. They've got a whole bullpen full of guys that would be good enough to be on any postseason roster. And most of those guys have needed Tommy John surgery. Dan Altavilla, Michel Baez, Jose Castilla, Keone Kela. So there's a lot of guys. And so you still got to work around those things, but I still think they're gonna have to do some things and maybe in-house at least some. And for anyone else, while we're in the middle of explaining how things work, for anyone who doesn't know, because you started off by talking about, hey, my team wins, but your team, who's better in the standing, also wins. So we didn't get anywhere. That's what an elimination number is. It's not how many games behind you are. It's you get eliminated by, or you subtract an elimination day from your loss if you are lower in the standings, or if the team is higher and they get a win, that also subtracts. So it's like a combination, right? If your elimination number is 10, that could be 5 wins for the first place team and 5 losses for the second place team. However, those 10 games come about, that's what an elimination number represents. So even if you win out, even if the Rockies win out, I don't know what their elimination number is for the wild card, but if it's 4, that just means that the Reds, I think might be in the postseason spot now, or maybe it's the Phillies, but that just means all they have to do is win 4 games, and even if the Rockies win out, doesn't matter. One of those red-colored baseball clubs are going to the postseason, not the Rockies.
Right. Well, you brushed up against it there for just a second. So speaking of AJ Preller's package, I do need to tell you all about our friends at Manscaped. Fellas, you got to get Manscaped. It is time. It's 2021. You want to feel better. You want to smell better, be cleaner. It's better. It's better all around for everyone involved with your downstairs situation. Whether you're getting the full package performance 4.0, which comes with a whole bunch of stuff. Did I say that backwards? Package performance. Hey, you know what? Package performance is also proper, but
it's a byproduct of Manscaped.
That's right. But it is, of course, the performance package 4.0. You get the lawnmower, you get some spritzer, you get a really comfortable pair of boxers. They've got all kinds of fantastic stuff to keep you comfortable. Use promo code DNVR at manscaped.com. You'll get 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. Again, that's promo code DNVR for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. Fantastic price. They really do make some good stuff. So the Colorado Rockies won a baseball game last night, as we mentioned earlier, believe it or not, and it was a wild one, Patrick, with a 9-8 final score. Colorado Rockies falling behind on multiple occasions, including at one point 6-2, thanks to kind of another iffy, rough collapse from Germán Márquez, who just wasn't able to finish some key innings there. But big, huge homers from Brendan Rodgers and, of course, Sam Hilliard, who just lost his father to ALS. And, of course, most people here have been following that story very closely. We have for a long time. Obviously, very, very sad. And you can't help when those kinds of things happen in sports but be moved and inspired when someone comes up right after something like that. And they're clearly emotional. And you have to be. You're just too close to it at that point. But man, that sure was something else.
He battled through that quite impressively, just like the team did. You know, I'm sure his teammates, and they talked about it a little bit in the post game, like Brendan Rodgers, who's a roommate of Sam Hilliard's in the minor leagues, how difficult that experience was for Hilliard, and how they were, almost inspired to get that win out there for him and for his father, Jim Hilliard. And it led to the comeback, which was just so impressive. In our Discord, we were talking about the game, and when they were down 6-2, I took far too long to go to DraftKings Sportsbook to see what the odds were for the Rockies to win. Then Rodgers hit the 2-run home run, and it was 6-4. And at that point, I checked, and it was plus 375 for the Rockies to win that game. So I can't imagine what it was before that, after the fourth inning, when it was 6-2. That would have been
nice money.
Very nice. It was just one of those games where if you watch the team long enough, you just get a sense that, no, it's not over yet. Sure, it's disappointing. Your ace is on the hill, and craps the bed here in this way in DC. But no, I didn't get the sense that Josiah Gray was going to shut it down. So it was great to see Rodgers homer, Hilliard homer right after. And despite even, the 2 runs given up in the 8th to flip the lead to 8-7, Rockies still had enough to come back and win that game on the road for their 4th straight. And this has been really, really interesting road trip because they've continued to improve all year long, and it's going to take all off season to figure out what the heck's going on and what does it mean too, because I don't know that we can settle on a result as to what it exactly means. It might mean a bunch of things. I don't know, but right now it's been really fun watching this team play, and it's been really nice that Sam got to, as soon as he comes back after his father's passing, he's able to put on that performance. And man, it was gut wrenching seeing him out there, and I can't even say he was holding back the tears because he wasn't. He couldn't. It was too much. But at the same time, that was the perfect place for him to be. He was out there on the field doing that thing that he first fell in love with because of his father, because of his family, and to have those moments and to be present with his father, to speak with him. I imagine he was doing a lot of that, and he'll forever do that. But also, still be locked in on the game in some weird capacity, as human beings are able to do in times of crisis and and in times like this where you just turn it on and you find another gear, he was in that gear. He kind of ascended in that capacity. So it was definitely a game and a moment that I'm not going to forget anytime soon.
Yeah, it's amazing what these, what sports can give you, and baseball, we talk about it a lot. There's 162 games a season. You never know what you're going to see any given day at the ballpark. But if you totally check out on your ball club in May, because it looks like they're probably not going to go to the postseason, regardless of the decent play as of late and all the other things, these are the kinds of moments you miss. It's why no matter how bad the ball club's been throughout my life, I always watch these August, September games. You never know when you're going to get, moments, like you said, that you'll never forget. This is one we'll always remember, even though to the grand scheme of competitiveness, it didn't really mean much. It meant a great deal on the night of. And like you said, there was that extra magic to it that they even lost the lead again. And in such an unlikely fashion, too, because Chacín has been so good this year. And he threw a pitch that was like a foot and a half off the plate that ended up going for a single into right field for an RBI that put Washington back on top. And then Elias Diaz goes out and hits another clutch home run, continuing his inspiring story of a big turnaround. And then it's, again, Brendan Rodgers, who has the 3 RBI night. And we talk about how great he's been on the road and everything Brendan Rodgers has been doing, but drives in for what would turn out to be the game-winning run, Sam Hilliard. And you cannot write that shit. They would throw you out of the room in the Hollywood meeting. And no. It's too unlikely. There's 9 guys in the batting order. It's not going to be him for every big moment. You're doing too much. Like, sorry, that's just what happened. It's just real life. It was, it was pretty magical. You're right. We'll remember that one for a very long time. Inside some of the other stuff, the baseball, another good performance from Lucas Gilbreth. You keep pointing out Tyler Kinley having been better lately. I thought, he got himself in some trouble. They aren't clean innings, but he's showing you a much, much better ability to throw strikes because the stuff has always been there. And he got a hold in that situation. Jordan Sheffield looked good. Like I said, Chacín got tagged for a couple of runs, but he didn't even really look that terrible. And then Carlos Estevez, once again, with the hold on to your butt save, but a save nonetheless.
Kinley has a 1.62 ERA over his last 15 games, 21 strikeouts to just 4 walks, a sub-1 whip. So he's
like that.
He's been the 7th inning guy. It's been Kinley, Chacín, Estevez, and I think that's what we'll see here down the stretch, barring some difficulties
Gilbreth
by either of those
in there
guys.
A little bit too.
He's been great for against those lefties or when they needed. That was a big spot. I was pretty hyped when Buddy went to him because a lot of people have been saying some good things. Daniel Bard in the last homestand, just talking with him about the bullpen in general being better as of late, and he immediately he started talking about Gilly and clarified, Gilbreth. I could figure out who that is, but that was the guy. That was the guy that he wanted to big up in particular was Lucas Gilbreth, and he's another one of those guys, just like Ryan Vallade, who made the jump from A-ball to the majors. Now, granted, sure, that's because last year got wiped away, and
a little weird, but still,
that's what he would have been in AA or AAA at that point. But still, nevertheless, the last moment you remember being on a field, it was in a California League ballpark or a South Atlantic League park in the case of the Asheville Tourists, and then you're in the majors, So it's been impressive to see these young guys do that, and that's that might be one of the positives that comes out of the pandemic for the organization is that maybe we do advance guys a little bit more aggressively through the minors than they've had over the last few years. They've of course been there. Those guys like John Gray in the past where, they did that and you go, well, yeah, obviously he's dominating. So he's earned it, but maybe there's still just cause to say, you know what, let's push these guys and maybe bring them up a little bit sooner than later and see what they've got. So that could be something, a little bit more promising, kind of on the outskirts of the success of guys like Lucas Gilbreth. And I love that you brought up Jordan Sheffield, still doing wonderful things. So there's a lot to like about this club. Still inexperienced, every day getting a little bit younger. And I think they're going to continue to get a little bit. They're going to skew younger in the next couple years as that next big wave down in essentially Fresno and Spokane, as they work their way up, they'll start to skew younger and be a little bit more exciting. Not to say that Connor Joe we know has been exciting, but when he was signed as just a minor league free agent, you weren't excited about him. Prove it. Okay, he went and did it, and he was exciting. Matt Adams, you signed him off the scrap heap. Show us something. You didn't get anything out of him, and so it's Connor Joe is just his blessing that has kind of been. It was a very shrewd pickup.
Keeps on giving,
right? So and so typically it's not going to be that exciting. You're not going to be excited necessarily by a veteran guy that gets picked up off the scrap heap, whereas with these young guys you can. And so, I think the excitement has come maybe a little bit quicker than I anticipated. I don't necessarily think that the wins are going to come as quickly, but that's okay. I'm just glad for at least that excitement. And again, it continues to build every day. I'm waiting for that first big home run by Colton Welker.
Yeah.
Ryan Vallades making his debut in DC. And so there's definitely a lot more sunrise on the horizon, so to speak.
And I think we'll see, in fact, if I were a betting man, I would say we'll see one of Lambert or Rollison before the season is out. And those guys are as exciting, if not more than anything, because whether they end up as starters or you can use them out of the bullpen next year, they're much better at helping you, really lock down your identity as a pitching and defense run prevention team. So speaking of being a betting man, by the way, I am a little bit of one because of our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. They allow you to do all kinds of fantastic stuff. You can bet on just about anything inside of the sport that you're following. You can go at bat to at bat. You can just pick stuff ahead of time. Who's going to get a home run? That's one of my favorites. Overs and unders on strikeouts for pitchers can be a lot of fun, or runs scored in the game if you've got a sense for the environment or how it's going to feel out there. Any of that stuff can be exciting. And of course, now that the NFL season is back, it is. I got to say, even as somebody who doesn't follow the NFL nearly as closely as I used to, it's so much fun to just bet on the NFL because it's so well structured and everything all happens exactly at once. And it's very easy to understand when your bets hit or don't. So it's really fantastic to bet on the NFL. If you want to do that right now, really is the best time because they're going to hook you up with a bunch of free money to bet right up front. Works like this. You download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. You use promo code DNVR. You'll receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. That's it. They don't have to do anything. Nothing has to happen. You just place $1 on a football game. Boom, you've got $200 free instantly for you to bet on whatever you want on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Get yourself used to having a little bit of fun on there. I promise you're not going to regret it. It's promo code DNVR for $200 in free bets instantly this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
I already won my pick of the week with John Gray, the game on Tuesday. That already came through for me in a couple ways. But right now, Trevor Story, the over on hits, again, not a good payout. It's minus 265, but I feel like it's almost a lot to happen today against Patrick Corbin because he's got really good numbers against him. From his time in Arizona, of course.
Right.
So there's a lot of history between those two guys. So I think that's going to continue to be one of those that pays out really well. Charlie's been, okay, but I think Trevor Story's the more likely of the of the two to come through on a hit. I like that. I think even Colton Welker has a shot to at least get a hit for himself.
I like that. Yeah.
Tapia's been good again. Tapia only has 4 plate appearances against Corbin, but has been good in those. So, that could be one of those sneaky ones. Story's basically 300. He's 7 for 24 against Corbin. So I like that one. And Tapia in his 4 at bats, as I said, has been good. He's 1 for 4, and one of those is a home run back in 2019. Hey, so
that's something. All right. Yeah. There you go. We got Jacob in the comments with a super chat. We appreciate you coming in with today's birthday. Happy 25 years old birthday, man. And how amazing was All Out? All Out was incredible. That was I was telling Patrick, I think after a show we did, I was just saying, it was the first time since the Attitude Era that I bought a pay-per-view. Like, I watched a bunch of them when WWE made the network available. That was pretty easy, right? You could subscribe to the network for a couple of months right around Royal Rumble, WrestleMania time, get all your watching in of all the old stuff, because that was the best thing about the network. And then, after Mania, kind of cancel for a bit and get back in if any storylines pique your interest. And so it was really easy to do that. But for All Out, man, and it was great because it was actually my fiance who's gotten into this, right? Because of these last couple of years of doing that. She does local shows and photography, and it was just morning of, and we're just sitting there, having breakfast, and she just goes, "So do you want to get All Out?" I feel like we should. I mean, we knew all the hype going in, CM Punk coming back and everything, and we researched how do you do it. Okay, you just get it on this app. What is it? It's $50. You know what? We've both been working hard. We can afford it for right now. We haven't actually bought a wrestling show in forever, and I will tell you what, worth every penny.
Normally when a fiance sits you down and says, "Hey babe, you want to go all out?" it might mean something different, but for you it was definitely the good
definitely.
And for anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about, we're at about the 42-minute mark here in the show. So all right, we've covered just about all the baseball we could cover to a degree. So some wrestling chat. And I'll to go back half a step, 2 or 3 years ago, I started to get the sense, because of the guys in All Elite Wrestling, that pro wrestling was going to have this major resurgence. And it took longer than I would have expected. And I don't know that it's ever really going to have its heyday again, like the Attitude Era or like the 80s, just because in the world we live in now, everything is so segmented, and there's a world. There's for high schoolers, there are people on YouTube that you and I have never heard of or have come across that are superstars to millions of teenagers everywhere that never had an outlet before, that never could create content and get it out there. So I think that's going to be something that will tamp it down to a degree, but it is unequivocally, a third renaissance of pro wrestling, and All Out has finally been that thing. And to a person, that's what everyone has said who purchased that pay-per-view was best $50 they ever spent. The next day I made sure on Sirius XM radio, there's a really good show that has Bully Ray, formerly known as Bubba Ray Dudley, and Tommy Dreamer and a few other wrestlers. Mark Henry's on that. And it's a 2-hour talk show about pro wrestling. And for big events like this, I say, I got to hear what their take is. What's going on? And that was one where I had to listen to the entire 2 hours of what's going on. What do people think? And how it was just otherworldly. And you had Adam Cole come out at the end, and you go, yes, it was bound to happen. He was one of the original members of the Elite. If you go back and you watch Being the Elite, he was on those shows for the first 100 or plus episodes. And then just when you think he couldn't get any better, Bryan Danielson, formerly Daniel Bryan in WWE, shows up, and you go, well, they turned it up to 70.
The whole thing. And they're going to go immediately into the story of who's the best professional wrestler in the world, which is it's like, there are two people who have a very legitimate claim to that right this moment. We're a little bit past the prime of, what was his name in New Japan? I'm blanking on Okada.
The American Dragon? Oh.
No, yeah, and also, I knew. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. This was the first time in decades that professional wrestling felt like a cultural moment. There have been big moments for like fans. We're like, oh man, remember when like Undertaker retired? That's kind of a big moment, right? There are things throughout the last several years. John Cena's like entire career, but when like Mike Tyson showed up and punched Stone Cold Steve Austin in the face, right? He actually gets Michaels eventually, but yeah, that right. And then the whole world, even like on ESPN, they're talking about it, that kind of thing, where people who aren't even into it. And that's what All Out had. It was like this incredible energy, but it was amazing because there was no like outside celebrity. It was all just this huge celebration, like Minoru Suzuki showing up. And there were some people like, oh my God, this guy. And then the other half, the people are like, why is everyone freaking out about this guy? I need to go learn who he is. And now they do. And I'm like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. So I'm with you. I think it's a third renaissance. I think they do have an opportunity. You're right. The numbers will never be what they were. You just can't do that. No network television show does numbers like they used to. But as far as like being culturally relevant, as far as being something that random people are asking about, the way your grandma asked you about Hulk Hogan, the way your mom asked you about Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, maybe about John Cena at times, but that really wasn't an era where it was culturally relevant. And now this is culturally relevant, and it's cool to be a wrestling fan again. And
AEW is very much these good guys for numerous reasons. As you said, Minoru Suzuki coming in, and the wrestling fans know who he is, and he's very well respected. And if you don't, you go and use YouTube, as you should be watching us here right now, and you find out about him, and then that opens up a portal maybe to a world you knew nothing about. AEW is doing that for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Or a couple weeks ago, now I guess it's maybe a couple months, but the MJF saying, hey, these are the 5 trials of Chris Jericho. And he has a death match with Nick Gage. Who the hell's Nick Gage? And why are these people excited about him? And people really seem to be buzzing. You go on YouTube, you find out, and that opens up a whole new portal. Right. And then you know what GCW is, Game Changer Wrestling. And you find out about that whole world in and of itself. So they're like putting other people over and saying, no, let's do this as a pro wrestling community. Let's not just say, hey, we want to build our thing and we want it to be, entirely proprietary, which of course they're going to do that to a degree, but they're putting other companies over and changing the rule book and saying, hey, Impact, why don't we kind of team up and let's do something together, and we'll put your talent on our show, and AAA Wrestling down in Mexico, we'll have your belt on our show on TNT, which is something that, wouldn't happen. They did it several years ago with the first, for All In, the first one where they had the NWA championship belt with, can't remember the guy's name, but Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes. And so they're going about it in a really interesting way of bringing everybody in and letting everybody have their own streams of revenue and play video games and do this and have their fun. And it's why a lot of people are kind of moving over and moving away from WWE if you're in the industry, because you have more freedom. You might not make as much money like that. I don't know how they're paying all their people, to be honest, but you're going to have more fun. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more freedom in a lot of ways. And you're not just going to be a pawn that has to sit on a runway in Saudi Arabia and go to some wrestling shows. And, there's some semi-nefarious things going on even outside of that.
As an independent contractor and get no health insurance, even though you've been working there your entire life. Like,
you're not a pawn in AEW. So I think that's why people are rooting for them, and they're doing some big things, and they're putting over these young guys too. So they've got their own NXT essentially, which is AEW Dark, and there's some guys even in the Denver community. There's Denver wrestlers.
Shout out Ryzen
on YouTube.
Let's go Ryzen. Hail Ryzen.
Let them know there's a couple guys that have gone either, that are there every week, and again, maybe they're more enhancement talent, but they're, you think Denver Pro Wrestling, you go, A, I didn't know it exists. And then B, it does exist. And AEW is actually like helping those guys out. That's another reason why you want to pull for the black and white brand, if you will.
Man, they're awesome. I love that Tony Khan treats people like people, and those are the reports we hear too. Ryzen, absolutely awesome. Came back out recently. He's on Dark all the time. Most people probably know Abaddon. She's from the local scene. Thunder Rosa wasn't from the local scene, but spent some time out here for a while. Katie's got some shots of her, so there's a pretty cool shoot. Now I'm blanking on the name of the women's promotion out here, and I won't guess incorrectly at it, but there's so much fan, and there's going to be more. There's going to be several more of these men and women who are going to make their way there. And yeah, like we were talking in our Discord the other day, and you and I were both kind of thinking, like, we feel like we've seen this movie a little bit before in the 90s, and Ted Turner and WCW started beating them in the rankings. And if you had to, in the ratings, bet money 10 years from now, will the E be back on top again? Probably. But then you also look at the difference between the people of Ted Turner and Tony Khan, and you go, but there's a chance. There's a chance. Like you were just describing, the apparatus seems more structurally sound. The one thing they do have in common is the seemingly throwing huge money at people to get big stars. Like, eventually you got to run out of space. But for now, like you said, let's just enjoy the hell out of the Renaissance, man.
We think it's big money. That's the other thing too, is that maybe it isn't necessarily, because again, these guys are getting more freedom, and they're allowed to, you know, have platforms where they can keep all of the money, whereas WWE wants everything to be funneled through them. So, you know, there's people that were fired by WWE that will just be independent. Like they'll just say, actually, no, I'm having fun doing my own thing and having the freedom. And I'm making just as much money. Maybe I'm making less, but I have more freedom. And so I don't know what they're promising, but they're doing a really great job. Their AEW is the DNVR of pro wrestling. You know, looking after the community, looking after their people, taking care of all of it. We have a similar logo. I mean, to a degree. Although ours was first.
Well, technically. 100%. So on that note, gonna go watch some baseball, and then gonna go watch some AEW, man. Feeling good about it. Might watch some Dark Side of the Ring, which is a different element there too. But
Plane Ride from Hell. Got to see that one. Happy birthday, Jacob. Thanks for the super chat again. Anyone else, if you have a super chat at any point here on our YouTube live stream, you'll have an opportunity to do it on Sunday for the post game, where we wrap up the series in DC. Final question. Do they come away with a series victory? Do they win one of these next two?
Yeah, I think so.
Same.
Yeah. It's going to be absolutely wild. Somebody said to me on Twitter the other day, the Rockies are just going to end up with a normal Rockies road record, aren't they? I was like, I don't know. They're kind of close to, yeah. I don't know. We'll have a look at that once they do it. But this is, like you said, let's enjoy the moment. Let's enjoy some Ryan Vallade. Let's hopefully enjoy a nice performance out of Kyle Freeland and see what happens from here, because they're making the actual watching of baseball much more entertaining as of late. So thank you, Colorado Rockies, for that. Thank you to all of you for listening into this episode, for subscribing to the DNVR.com for access to all the written content, the discounts, the free shirt, access to the Discord channel, all kinds of other things. But the biggest one, of course, is getting to be a member of the super cool family, just like in AEW, as we talked about. Follow on social media at Patrick Lyons, at Drew Creasman, at DNVR_Rockies. Continue to be absolutely awesome baseball fans out there. We promise we will continue to be absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.